Hi, welcome to Ekascloud. My name is Chikatish Umapati. Today I'm going to talk about networking ports. Yeah, so what are networking ports? As you can see on the screen, we have a networking diagram of how the data packet travels from an end user PC, which goes all the way to the internet and comes back by opening a web page. So we are going to understand the role of a port number in a networking field. So and also you can able to see there are some well-known port numbers which are also called reserved port numbers for specific protocol or for an application or a service. For example, 20 represents here for an FTP, and 22 is for the SSH, and 25 is dedicated for SMTP. And then we have 53 for DNS, and then obviously 80 is a well-renowned port for HTTP. Then we have POP3 for the internet emailing, which is 110, and then we have 443 for the SSL application. And also it signifies whether it is TCP, UDP, or any other protocol. So what are these port numbers? So to know the port number is something what the computer understands. Whereas for the client, for example, like a browser, it sends the request. It could be an FTP request, it could be a HTTP request, but the computer or the networking server only understands it in terms of the port. That is where the actual services runs, on the port. And when a request goes, it goes to the port, obviously the IP address, the server, and then within that it will go to the specific port, because each computer or a server can run multiple services. So when we say multiple services, the ports are represented within the computer world as 2 to the power of 16, which can have up to 65535, that is 65,535 ports, active ports available within the computer to run its own services. So obviously this many ports are again divided into different categories. Some are called as register ports, some are dedicated just for the server ports, and then we have client ports as well. For the purpose of explanation on this page, we'll be treating the client port as a higher number, which is 37481, and the destination port or the server port will be treated as the default HTTP port, which is number 80. So what are port numbers? Port numbers are used to determine what protocol incoming traffic should be directed to. Ports allow a single host with a single IP address to run network services. Each port number identifies a distinct service, and each host can have 65535 ports per IP address. So as you can on the picture, we have an end user PC who is going to hit a web request on the browser. Typically that request will translate that as a data packet, and it will try to go to the destination. So obviously this request has to translate as some sort of service which is running at the destination end. In this case, it is probably a web server running at 80. So when the request goes from the end user PC, it will go to the router, and then it will add the source port. Obviously knows that it is going to run at 80 by default, unless otherwise it is running on a different port. And then when the request goes to the destination, it will be having the source port. Obviously that is the higher client port side, and the destination port number. And when the packet header comes back, or the data packet comes back from the destination server, it has to normally, in a typical networking, you will have a firewall, because that's the one which protects the private networks from the public network, which is the internet. So obviously the firewall has to be configured to allow request coming back from the responses coming back from the web server, which is in this case 80, and then it reaches the router. So the router needs to then add the IP address of the source PC where this request came from, and then it is going to go and display the web page. So in this case, we have seen the port number 80, which is the HTTP. Similarly, this can be applicable for any other services. It could be FTP, or it could be anything else. what we have seen here. It could be an SSL, it could be an SSH, or it could be SMTP. The same concept applies there as well. So as I said, in the networking ports, we have different ranges. So it can, each PC or an IP address can have up to 65,566 addresses, of which they have already categorized them as well-known ports. These are all 0 to 123. They're also called server ports. These range is dedicated for making ports within the server as a networking service. Well-known ports are also configured more like as a reference data or a golden data within a file. If you go into, for example, in Windows, we have Windows installation directory, and then you have system32, and then we have drivers, and then etc folder. Within that, you have a file which can list down all the known ports available to that particular computer, which is what I have explained in the previous slides about different ports, default ports being available, or also called as known ports. These are all dedicated for HTTP, FTP, SFTP, SSL, etc. So the well-known ports are the port numbers range from 0 to 123. They are also called server ports, are the system ports. They are used system process and provide widely used types of networking services. On a Unix-like operating system, a process must execute with super user privilege to be able to bind a network socket to an IP address using one of the well-known ports. And also then we have dynamic ports. These also known as sort of client ports. These are the higher range ones. These range from 49152 to 65535. Contains dynamic or private ports that cannot be registered with IANA. So IANA is the entity which controls all the policies of within the network, like what is the all the IP address classes, the port number range. These are all defined by IANA. This is an entity which controls the networking principles. This range is used for private or customized services or temporary purposes for automatic allocation of the ports. So what are register ports? Then we have something called from 1024 to 49151. These are register ports. They are again assigned by the IANA for specific service upon application by requesting entity on most system. Can be used by ordinary users. To truly understand the concept of a port, networking port, you need to use a specific software called a Microsoft Network Monitor. So what is the importance of this? So to explain this, we probably should use two networks which is connected to a network, like a private network, and then we can able to run services on one computer, and then we can able to try to reach out to that service on a specific port. And then what this network monitor does is it will show you various different events which are happening behind the scene at the computer, and then at the protocol level, and we should be able to capture that to truly understand what's really happening. So for the purpose of this demo, I have configured two virtual machines, VM1 and VM2. VM1 is the one which is acting as client. VM2 obviously runs both the services, the HTTP and the FTP, and also we should be able to ping each other machine. So as you can see in this slide, I've taken a snapshot of my Microsoft Network Monitor, which I installed on VM1, and I've tried to ping my VM2, which is having an IP address of 10.0.2. And you can see various events happening. This is at the ICMP level. So typically when you ping an IP address, ping is a powerful command. So the most important reason why anyone would ping is just to see whether the host is reachable and within the network, and it is configurable and it is up and running. And when you get a successful reply message back, which is normally from the ICMP protocol, which says whether it has successfully reached the destination IP and got a response back. So as you can see, there are different various events which has happened, that is from VM1 to VM2, and you can see various different messages coming from ICMP. So similarly, here I have used VM1 and I have opened a web page which is running on VM2, which is the IIS, and you can see various different things happening, which is at the TCP protocol level and the HTTP level. So it again goes from the source port, which is 49671, and the destination port is 80. And again, when on the way back, the response comes back from 80 to 49671. As you can able to see, this has been captured on the network monitor. This is very useful when we are debugging networking issues. So similarly, I've used also an FTP service, which is default running on IIS server on a VM2. So when I try to hit a FTP site from VM1, there are various different things which happen. So obviously the FTP service is running by default at port number 21. And here the source port is 49674, which has been captured in the network monitor. Thank you for listening.